Friends, welcome to your Wednesday math. So what we talked about so far is we talked about complementary angles, opposite angles, or sometimes called vertical angles, supplementary angles, as well as type of angles, things like acute, obtuse, and right angles. What we're going to be doing now is taking in all that info that we learned so far, and we're going to start applying it to triangles. So today we're going to do a little bit of a review of the different types of angles and how we would label triangles with those types of angles, and as well as different types of triangles based off of the length of the sides. We're going to apply that together, so your work today is going to be basically labeling different types of triangles. That way, Friday we're going to start going ahead with angles of triangles. But for now, let's just review the different types of angles. So we've talked about 3 different types of angles, technically 4, but we're just going to cover 3 of them today. We have this angle right here, which is our right angle, and our right angle is equivalent to 90 degrees, so it's exactly 90 degrees. And usually it'll have a little box in the corner telling you that it is a right angle. So a right angle triangle, so if I have a triangle like this, and it has a little right angle, that is a right triangle. All right, so that is our right angle. Our acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. So acute angles and less than 90 degrees. How we can remember it is acute sounds like cute. Cute is small. So usually small things are cute, and that's how you can remember that. And if we have an acute triangle, it means all 3 angles of the triangle here are less than 90 degrees. So this one's less than 90, this one's less than 90, and this one is less than 90. All 3 are less than 90 degrees. Right triangle, only one is 90 degrees. Okay? And then we have our obtuse, which is more than 90 degrees. How we can remember obtuse is obtuse sounds like obese. Obese means big. And if you have an obtuse angle triangle, that means you have an angle that is bigger than 90 degrees. But only one will be bigger than 90 degrees. So right and obtuse, these triangles right here, only one angle will be either, for a right triangles, one is 90 degrees. For obtuse, one is over 90. Acute, all 3 will be less than 90. Right? So that's how we label our different types of angles and triangles. So we have a right angled triangle, which has a right angle in it, usually has that little box. Acute, all 3 are less than 90 degrees, so they're all small. And obtuse is one angle is bigger than 90 degrees. So those are different types of angles and how we can label different types of triangles with that angles. Now we need to talk about different types of triangles. So we have, here are the names. We have equilateral, isosceles, and scalene. An equilateral triangle, all 3 sides have the same length. So if one side here is 6 centimeters, it means all sides, are going to be 6 centimeters. So for the sake of argument, let's say all 3 of these sides are exactly the same length. I can't draw it very well. It means this is an equilateral triangle. One way you can tell if it is an equilateral triangle is the lines will sometimes have these little dashes in the middle of them. And an equilateral triangle will have a little dash on each side of the triangle, all 3 sides. Those little dashes show you that each side is the same length. So you can just look at the triangle without having to measure the actual sides and be able to tell it's an equilateral triangle. Because all 3 sides are going to be the same length. Isosceles, 2 sides are the same length. So isosceles means I have two lengths of a triangle that are exactly the same. Remember those little ticks from the equilateral? It'll only be on two sides this time. So those little ticks will show you that you have two sides exactly the same length. The only difference is at the bottom here, there either will be no tick, or sometimes you see this, but not very often, is there'll be two ticks. Those two ticks just show you that it's a different length than the other sides of the triangle. But you don't usually see it. You usually see nothing there. A scalene triangle is all three sides are different. If all three sides are different lengths. So it would look something kind of like that, or like that, or something like that. How you can tell with a scalene triangle is, for one, visually you can usually see if all three sides are different lengths. The other way is with those ticks, you'll sometimes see one side will have one tick, another side will have two, and another side will have three. Those ticks just show you all three sides are different lengths. All right, so equilateral, all three sides are the same length. Usually there'll be a tick on all three sides, just a single tick on all three sides to show you that they're the same length. Isosceles is two sides are the same. Sometimes those two sides will have little ticks, and then the opposite and the leftover side will usually have nothing. And a scalene is all three sides are different. Usually you can visually see if they're all three are different, or they'll have little ticks that has one with one, another one with two, and another one with three. So those are three different types of triangles by length. What we are going to be doing today is labeling triangles something like acute equilateral or obtuse isosceles. So how we do that is, if I give us a triangle like this, first of all, I'm going to label the angle. So right off the bat, I know that this is a right angle triangle because that little box in the corner. So it's called a right something. What type of triangle of these three is it? Are all three sides the same length? Nope, clearly not. Are two of the sides the same length? Nope, can't see it. So that means it's a scalene. All three sides are different. So in this case, this triangle is called a right scalene. So I will sometimes just see a triangle that looks like this with that little box in the corner, or I'll see those little ticks. But in this case, I could clearly see that it was a scalene triangle without needing the ticks. So that's a right scalene triangle. Let's try labeling a few more. Now let's do now we have, first of all, we have to label the angle. What kind of angles are all of these? They're all pretty small. I don't see any one that looks bigger than 90 degrees. So this is called an acute triangle. And then we have to figure out what label to give it from one of these three. Is it an equilateral? Nope. This side is different from these two. Is it a scalene? Nope, because two sides are the same because of those ticks right there. So that means it's an isosceles. So we call this triangle an acute isosceles triangle. So we have our acute isosceles. And let's try. This is not going to be a very good drawing. I'm going to try my best. Okay, so here's our third triangle. What kind of triangle is this? First of all, let's look at the angles. These are all pretty small angles, so I know it's an acute. And all three sides are the same length because of those three little ticks, so I know it's an acute equilateral. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you have an equilateral triangle, all three, it'll be an acute. You can only have an acute equilateral triangle because you cannot have a right angle triangle where all three sides are the same length. As you can see here, it just doesn't work. And you can't have a scalene where all three sides are the same length. Well, obviously, you can have one with all three sides. But you can't have an equilateral triangle that has an obtuse length. So, if it's an equilateral triangle, it automatically is acute. But only, so if it's equilateral, it's acute. If it's an acute triangle, does not necessarily mean it's equilateral. All right? So that's one other triangle. Let's do maybe two more examples. So now we have first of all, we need to figure out what kind of angle are we dealing with here. We have two really small angles, but I see there's one really big angle. If it has one angle that's bigger than 90 degrees, I know it's an obtuse triangle because it has an obtuse angle. So I would call this triangle obtuse. Now I have to figure out the second name. Is it equilateral? Nope, because all three sides are not the same. Is it scalene? Nope, because it has those ticks there that show two sides of the same length. So that means it's an obtuse isosceles. Because it has an obtuse angle and two lengths are exactly the same and one's different. So that's an obtuse isosceles. We're going to do one more example. So now we have a right triangle. We can tell because of that little box there. So right off the bat, I know this is a right triangle. And I know it's an isosceles because two sides are the same length. So it's a right isosceles. And there we go. As you begin looking at triangles, you'll notice some characteristics. Equilateral triangles always have acute angles. Isosceles triangles can either be a right angle triangle, it can be an obtuse angle, or it can be acute. So that can be any one of the three. A scalene can be a right angle triangle, it can be acute, or it can be obtuse. Equilateral is the only one that's really consistent, that equilateral triangles are always acute. The other two can kind of throw you off. So that's why you have to pay attention to the little markings on triangles to help you out. Just remember, if you see a triangle that, in this case, for this worksheet, does not have a little box in the corner, you have to kind of pay attention to the angle. They all should be pretty obvious as to what kind of angles they are, but usually if it looks like it could be 90 degrees, but it doesn't have that box there, it might mean that it's an acute angle. It just might be, instead of 90 degrees, it's something like 80 or 89 degrees. There shouldn't be any triangles that are doing that because I don't want to play any tricks on you guys, but that's essentially what you would have to look out for. So what you're doing today is you're going to get a bunch of different triangles and you're labeling them acute equilateral or obtuse isosceles or right scalene. And that's essentially all you're doing. Starting Friday, we're going to start applying angles to our different type of triangles. But for now, we just have to know how to label these different types of triangles and why they have certain labels. And that's essentially it. So I will see you guys Friday. Enjoy. I hope you're enjoying your week. It sucks that we don't have very nice weather anymore, but hopefully it'll get a little bit better. And I will see you guys Friday.